I really enjoy the tradition of family-run businesses in Thailand, whether it's people running a restaurant or a local store or a service provider. There are so many little family-run businesses that provide excellent service, and quite often for way cheaper than some of the bigger franchise or chain stores or bigger companies do. And usually they're local, so when we're living rurally, that means that they're just down the road in the village. And one of these businesses that I've been using for a while is our local motorcycle repair shop. I've only had a motorcycle for a short time, but he also repairs garden machinery like my lawnmower and my weed whacker, and so I've gotten to know him over the time. And recently I had to go down and visit him, use his service to repair a flat tyre on my motorcycle. And it was pretty easy really. I knew I had an issue because the tyre had gone down a couple of times. I pumped it up and it wasn't keeping pressure, so popped down to see him and it really didn't take long at all. One thing I forgot to do was to brush up on my Thai vocabulary, so I was not actually armed with the right set of words that I needed to explain to him what I needed doing. But it's pretty easy. You get used to this when you're as bad at Thai language as I am. You kind of mix and muddle and use your body language and other ways of communicating, and I got the message across pretty easily. But it just did remind me, and actually has prompted me to start to learn more vocabulary. In this instance, particularly relating to my motorcycle, which is a whole set of words that I have never needed to use until recently. And as is typical, he just dropped everything he was doing previously and got to work repairing my flat tyre. Just grabbed the tools he needed and sat down and made it look like he has done this hundreds of times before, which is pretty easy because I'm sure he has. And he's a bit of a character too. He talks to everyone, he likes to have a chat, and as he was working, this is a good time for me to engage with him and use my Thai language and to really practice it some more, because he doesn't speak English at all, which is pretty common around here. But even if you have no Thai language, it is actually really easy to go into a place like this and get the work done that you need to do. You can describe what you need done visually and through body language, and you'll get the job done. The main thing is always just to keep a smile and keep you cool and just go with the flow and trust this guy, he knows what he's doing. And just a quick look around his shop will show you this. There is a lot of local people that take their bikes there. Some of them are in a serious state of disrepair. Others will just come in like I did, they'll just drop in. Even when he was changing my tyre, there was a couple that came in and they just patiently waited for him to finish fixing my bike so he could pay attention to theirs and get their problem sorted out for them. And this was certainly far easier than going to one of the big tyre places or motorcycle places in Chom Tong, which is a good 15 minutes ride from here, and I'm sure it would have been more expensive, and I may have well been told to go away and come back later in a few hours and the job would have been done. Whereas here it took about 10 minutes and there was no problem and had good conversation to boot. Initially, when we first moved to Thailand in 2002, there was local businesses like this, and I wasn't really sure of them because quite often they worked out of pretty rough environment, pretty low-key, low-cost environment, and I was never really sure how good the job was going to get done. But I learned this through driving an older vehicle. We had an old Toyota van at the time, and I'd taken the van in a couple of times to get work done to places that had been recommended by the guy that we'd gotten the van from, and they were bigger businesses that had come recommended, so I trusted them. But each time I asked them to check the brakes and look at the brakes, because the brakes just seemed to be not as effective as they could be, and they told me they had fixed the brakes, they'd done an oil change or whatever else it was, but the brakes were never really fixed. We had a neighbour that lived close by whose brother ran a mechanic shop out of the shack in his backyard, and it really literally was a shack. There was no walls on it, the roof was rice straw and maybe some corrugated iron. It was pretty rough looking, but this friend of ours said, "Oh, come on, you got to at least let my brother change your oil for you." So next time I needed an oil change, I went across to the neighbours and got them to change the oil, and I said, hey, while you're at it, can you check the brakes for me? Later that day, I went back to pick the van up, and he'd changed the oil and told me he'd fixed the brakes, and I paid him what he asked, which was well under what I'd anticipated. And as I drove away, tested the brakes, they were better than ever. So this backyard mechanic, working out of his shack, charging me a very minimal fee, had repaired the brakes that a couple of these bigger repair shops had failed to do. And so this has given me the confidence to really engage with and make use of these small business people who are plying their trade, they're doing their business, they're doing it really, really well in a lot of cases, and super conveniently, and sometimes ridiculously cheap. My inner tube took 10 minutes to replace and cost only 100 baht, so it was well worth it. Good conversation in there as well. So I love going into smaller businesses like this, whether I'm buying a bottle of water or getting an inner tube changed, whatever it is. I very rarely will go into a 7-Eleven unless I've got a 1,000 baht note that I need change for, and then they've always got it. But other than that, sometimes, sure, in the hot season when it's really hot, and I'll duck in for 5 minutes of air-conditioned coldness, but other than that, I will quite happily use a local business as often as possible, and I'll encourage you to do the same. If you're in Thailand, particularly in a small town or a small area, don't hesitate to give your business to the local people. They're going to give you a great service and lovely warm smiles and some good conversation too. If you'd like to learn more about living in rural northern Thailand, please check out this video here. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and if you're new to our channel, please hit that subscribe button and enjoy our other videos. Thanks for watching.